In the Championship, George, loads of surprising results to get through. But you wanted to start with something that you've noticed more from a stylistic point of view, a holistic stylistic point of view. You think there's a bit of a trend in 25-26 Championship football?
Yeah, like we've spoken about the more unpredictable nature of the Championship this season, where trying to work out who is good and who is bad basically changes weekend on weekend, and it feels like it could be one big seeded batch. But it's more in terms of the actual games themselves, where I feel like last season was almost defined by having a few sides who were so much better than everyone else that it meant we saw dominance, consistently winning games of football. Whereas pretty much across the board, apart from Derby, I would say the one outliers where their games tend to be pretty low scoring without many chances. It feels like all games are just really end to end. Like you look through the games and there are very few occasions where a team has won by creating opportunities throughout, dominating the ball, conceding very little chances, and that's that. It feels like games being won on finishing effectively rather than dominance. I think that is playing into why it's so unpredictable. Like there are, the only, in terms of defensive numbers and teams who are good at just shutting out the opposition, there are very, very few. Like some are doing it in isolation, and Derby have been okay at it, but they conceded 5 against Coventry, and from an attacking perspective, they're really poor. It just feels like, let's go out there. Both teams are going to attack, and whoever can finish their dinner is going to be the one to win it. So it looks, it's only 6 games in, 5 for some teams. But right now it feels like a league where the variance in terms of where teams could finish, like you look at Preston now, who are currently 5th in the league, it feels like they could basically finish anywhere between 5th and 23rd still. And that's the case for most teams. No one team is seemingly safe for being sucked into it, and no one is like a nailed on promotion candidate.
Yeah, Middlesbrough have been the best team so far in terms of results, and I'm confident in saying have been the best all-round team so far. They beat West Brom on Friday night 2-1. They became the first Boro team in their 149-year history to win 5 of their opening 6 league games. What defined this one? New boys scoring. Strelets, after a long throw was flicked on, Strelec stabbed in. I've pronounced his name twice differently in the space of 5 seconds.
The second time I quite liked it because it was almost a pun because it sounded like you were saying stretch.
he Strelec'd for it and stabbed it home.
Yeah.
One of only 9 touches that he had in the first half before being subbed off for Cali Sen, who then scored the second goal at the end of what was a delectable move involving Morris, Conway, Sen, Hackney, Sen.
A great finish.
Great comms, great finish. Daniel Mann is on fire this season. No surprise there. An icon. Hegerber scored a header near the end for West Brom to reduce the arrears, but Boro saw it out. And for me, the key tactical aspect of this game was incredibly simple. West Brom's right back, George Campbell, touched the ball 115 times in the game, which was way more than anyone. And Middlesbrough's game plan was pretty simple. Allow the pass out to Campbell on the right side of West Brom's defence, lock everyone else off when he has the ball, and wait for Campbell to do something with it. And sadly, this is a guy who can play right back, does play centre back quite often, is more centre backy on the ball than he is right backy on the ball, I think it's fair to say. It was a pretty simple out of possession game plan for Boro. It was incredibly effective. They executed it very well, and West Brom found it very, very difficult to do much in their final third. It was also, from a neutral's point of view, pretty tough to watch, and I'm sure from a West Brom point of view as well. But the game plans are working well for Boro, and defensively they're really impressive. Even with absences here, Dale Fry was out. Lenihan has been injured again, and Edmondson had to come off injured as well, which meant they had Ayling, Jones and Matt Targett in the back 3. After that, Targett did very, very well, and he's been an excellent pickup for them. Jones and Ayling have been brilliant as well. They are the standout defensive side so far, as per the numbers, as per the eyes. And this is a manager in Rob Edwards who, if you think about his other successful sides, when he went up to the Prem with Luton, came in November, I think it was. They conceded only 17 in 25 games after he took charge. They weren't very exciting going forward. They didn't really need to be because they conceded so infrequently. His Forest Green side, they scored a few more goals in winning League 2, but still conceded less than a goal a game. So at their best, Edwards' sides are excellent out of possession. That's what he's done already with Boro. And I think they're due to improve in attack as well. Most teams think they'll get better over the course of the season. Quite often teams don't get better over the course of the season. But in these conditions where you've got Strelets and Sen and Nipan and Hansen and a lot of other new players that are playing in attacking areas of the pitch, I think they are due to improve as those players start to kind of improve their relationship on the pitch. So, yeah, this is the week where, particularly looking at the rest of the league as a whole, I'm looking at Boro and just being like, you're easily the best side so far, and I'm feeling very positive. Sometimes at this stage of the season, a team top of the league after 6 games, we might be pouring a bit of cold water on things. I think in the context of the Championship so far, I haven't got any cold water really when it comes to Middlesbrough. For West Brom, I spent a lot of time thinking about West Brom while watching this game.
As you do when you're watching games of football involving a team.
Yeah. But I don't think I'm going to be thinking about them that much more in the next few weeks and months, because I think I've got them nailed, basically. They've got no major issues in terms of their approach or their application. They're a decent side.
Apart from a right back who's really...
but this is what I mean.
Not very competent on the ball.
But that's a personnel issue.
Right.
I think they've got a squad issue.
Okay.
I think the team is set up fine. I think the way that they're approaching things is absolutely fine. But I think the makeup of their squad is going to make it very, very tough. I don't think they're going to be very good going forward. They are not bad. Their floor is high, their ceiling is low, I think, basically. I think they're going to find it hard to be top 6 good like this. Even if Campbell comes out, their other right back is Alfie Gilchrist, and he's a similar profile, not offering much going forward. I gather there's a youngster called Alex Williams, who I'd be keen to see and hopefully could offer a bit more energy from right back in games where that's necessary. On the left side, you've got Callum Stiles, who's tidy but not dynamic in the final third. Charlie Taylor is another option at left back, similar. Sam Illing Jr., could be quite good as an attacking left back. Seemingly wants to play further forward. And in the centre of the park as well, Diakite was really poor. I hope to see more of Collier on loan from Man U because he looked quite interesting when he came on. You kind of know what you're getting from Mowat and Mollenby.
Yeah.
Johnston was the only one that looked particularly lively at the top of the pitch. So that's kind of how I see West Brom so far. And I don't know how the fans feel about that, but I think quite a lot of departures over the summer. And high floor, low ceiling. That's what I think West Brom will be. And I'll be surprised if that looks any different anytime soon. Loads of surprise results. That one wasn't one.
Ooh.
Boro cracking on as they started the season. But Hull 3, Southampton 1. Hello.
This was a surprising result, albeit maybe not as surprising as it would have seemed pre-season, because Southampton have struggled to really build up any kind of head of steam under Will Still. And Hull, to me, look like a side who are going to thrive in games where they don't have much of the ball because of the players that they've got and their ability to counter at pace. And that was how it went here. Will Still said after the game that he felt like Southampton controlled the game for large periods of it. And it's very hard to disagree with him about that. They dominated possession. They had loads of territory. And it certainly wasn't like Hull, were a constant threat on the counter, albeit when they did counter, they created big chances. They had 4 shots on target in the game, the 3 goals, and then the first from Gelhardt, of which the rebound was scored by Joseph. Good to see Carl Joseph get another goal. You can see how much it meant to him, kind of being in the right place at the right time to almost kind of throat it in from the rebound. Lundstrom finishing off a brilliant counter-attacking move.
Great knockdown from Burnley.
I also love the finish itself because he sets himself as if he's going to power it and then just opens his right foot and guides into the bottom corner before McBurney from a set piece makes it 3-0. Outrageous goal from Adam Armstrong to make it 3-1 in the dying minutes, just to kind of show everyone what he is still capable of with a brilliant touch, swivel and shot. But for Saints, there's going to be a big concern here about their,
one win in 6 games.
And that win came against 10-man Wrexham. From a statistical point of view, which I'm sure if Will Still was sitting here with us, he would say, our XG is the second best in the league as per Opta. Pretty much on par with Coventry, who have scored the most goals in the league so far. So finishing has obviously been an issue. But even so, watching them in games, it doesn't feel like they are necessarily a free-flowing, effective attacking side. And up against here, a Hull team that have been great fun to watch, who've been, their games have always been very end-to-end from an attacking, despite not a great start to the season, from an attacking viewpoint, they've been very strong. But their issue has been defensively. And yet here, despite not seeing much of the ball, they were able to prevent Southampton from creating too much of note, really. Will be interesting personnel. Armstrong coming off the bench. Downs, who's had a pretty poor start to the season so far, being hooked after an hour without really threatening. So concern for Southampton. For Hull, this is important. More games like this, more opportunities to make their attacking threat count is going to be important. Bellumi started, but came off at half time with a hamstring issue, which is a blow after his long period out. But I think from a stylistic point of view, this is a game that really suited Hull. And I think maybe from their own defensive shape, as we've seen them get caught in possession with a higher line quite often, they might be a better defensive team, I think, when they're defending deeper, which was the case here, and would make sense when you've got players like Egan, for example. Brilliant ball from Giles for the third goal, as you'd expect from him, and we need to see that more often. But just one of those games where if you are a neutral observer looking at the Championship and you're like, are Southampton one of the best sides? Oh no, maybe they're not. Are Hull going to get relegated? Oh no, they look really good here. So yeah, one of the many, many occasions where it feels like balls in the air at the moment in terms of who is good and who is poor every weekday or every match day, I should say, in the Championship.
Yeah, you mentioned Saints being second for XG generated, sixth worst XG against so far. Still's tactical style seems to be turning games into shootouts. And
well, that's what I was saying. Every game is a shootout.
If they've got better players than everyone, you can understand the logic behind turning games into that rather than us having to break down a low block every week. But at the moment, the attacking players look really low on confidence, and that's going to need to change. And certainly, regardless of whether that changes or not, they've got to tighten up. There's 4 games this season. They've conceded 1.5 XG or more, and that's just not good enough. Harwood-Bellis kind of summed it up. The second goal gave the ball away with a loose pass, then got absolutely dunked on by McBurney for the knockdown for Lundstrom. So lots for Saints to work out. Bristol City 1, Oxford 3 on Sunday, George. Entertaining game for the Sunday afternoon Red Buttoners. First loss for them, first win for your lot.
Yeah, this was fun. It's really interesting what's happened at Oxford over the last 10 days or so, because the season started pretty poorly, quite similar to what we saw at the back end of last season, albeit from an attacking perspective similar, from a defensive perspective not at all. And Oxford stayed up last season by Gary Rowett turning Oxford into a Gary Rowett team. And it feels like with Rowett we have an EFL manager where if you're going to say what you get from a X team, probably what you get from a Rowett team would be the person you'd go to, where we know that it's
yeah. Aaron McLean on CoCom said Rowett's been around the blocks more than once.
Yeah, just damn right, constantly flying around blocks.
Yep.
But it feels like there was he did a in between the Millwall job, or the Birmingham job, I should say, in this job, he did a podcast on the business of football, and he was asked, "What is your playing style? What's your ideology?" And I couldn't believe my ears when he said. He was like, right, sometimes you go into clubs and you have to play a certain way. You have to manage the players you've got. You've got to manage the, different clubs call for different styles. And he was like, what I really love is like Jurgen Klopp high pressing football. And I was like, hey, that's I've never ever seen a Gary Rowett team play high pressing football. And interestingly, at the end of the season, after Oxford had secured safety, he said in an interview, either on our pod, or I think it was with us, wasn't it?
Let's claim it.
Or it was either that or the dub, which I'm also on, where he said that it was the players who came to him at the back end of last season and said, we need to play more pragmatic football. Like, we need to change our style of play. And he was like, all right, okay, let's do that to stay up. This season, it is so different. And to start the campaign, it was so different where the defensive unit was, or the line was much higher than we're used to seeing. There was much more energy out of possession, way less positional kind of rigid structure that you're used to seeing from a Rowett side. But the attacking play hadn't really clicked yet. But with the arrival of Brian de Keersmaker in midfield, who I'm pretty sure will be a Premier League footballer within the next 18 months, with the arrival of Nick Prelets, who is a kind of aggressive, burly attacking player, Philip Krastev, who's come in. Suddenly the attacking unit is very different in terms of personnel and in terms of output as well. And now Oxford's games have become these crazy basketball games where opposition teams are creating loads of opportunities, but Oxford themselves are creating loads. And that was the case against Coventry, where in the first half Coventry were by far the better team, in the second half Oxford were. It was the case against Leicester, in the first half Oxford were by far the better team, and then against 10 men kind of fell away a bit. And it was the case against Bristol City, where Bristol City had loads of chances in the game. Like, it wasn't a particularly strong defensive performance from Oxford. Emil Rees, in particular, got into a couple of good positions in the first half and couldn't make the most of them. But even though that was the case, Oxford were fully deserving of the 3 points.
Yeah.
the goals came. The first goal came from a set piece, a brilliant ball in from Tikersmaka, headed in by Prelec for his first goal. The second was a wonder strike from Shemi Plaheta, who sometimes, the shots from range go in, and this was one of those, and it was dramatic in the way that it happened. And he, he's one of those players that is a constant threat. It's just the final product is often lacking. A big moment in the game was Rob Atkinson going off injured, where after that, City's defensive shape looked, a lot poorer. And then after half time, Anis Mehmeti scored his own. There was a competition for the better goal on the day between Plaheta and Mehmeti. But then Oxford came forward again and had a couple of opportunities before the goal eventually came to make it 3-1 through. It's been credited to Greg Lee, but I'm relatively confident it was a free kick that just bypassed everyone and went in. So, and there were opportunities missed by Oxford either side, as was the case for Bristol City. But I don't think any neutral viewer, or even probably Bristol City fans, could begrudge the away side the win. For Bristol City, maybe it was just a case of a bit of complacency, the injury rocking them early on, but were unable to really dominate the game as they'd have hoped to. And Jason Knight, in particular in midfield, cut a really frustrated figure throughout, and it feels like he's such an important player to City when they are good. But from an Oxford perspective, things have shifted so much from 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, thinking we're a pretty dour Championship side who are, might have to face up to a really difficult, long, hard season, to now looking at 3 games against good Championship sides at the very worst. You could argue that they were even better, certainly in 2 of them, certainly in 2.5 of them, really, playing a brand of football that we didn't expect. So, maybe exciting times.
Norwich 2, Wrexham 3. Another entertaining game and high-scoring one as well. Perhaps not surprising given the abhorrent defensive records of these 2 teams so far this season, and Norwich's home record. Abhorrent, I'm afraid. 3 defeats out of 3 at home in the league. It's been a really poor start to the Liam Manning era. They went ahead. A lovely assist from Jurasek outside of his boot, over the top. Jack Stacey galloping in behind and finishing well. The right back, and it was Wrexham's right wing back Kabore, who had a big hand in their 2 goals as well, exploiting a Norwich high line with the first goal, where I kind of like this, where Windass is basically standing 5-6 yards offside and the ball is deep in Wrexham's defensive half. And I should know who. Someone played a incredible switch across to Kabore galloping in behind, who managed to get onto it. And then he latches onto the ball on the right wing, looks up, and obviously Windass, because he was 6 yards offside, is miles in front of the defensive line who are backpedaling. He just puts it across and he taps it in. Yeah. You sort of think Windass is not active until the ball comes across to him, so you can't call him for offside. It feels like a bit of if you're playing against a high line, and you've got someone like Kabore who you can be confident if you hit the corner, he will motor onto it. It's kind of a bit of a cheat code, a sort of goal-hanging cheat code for Windass. Kabore then set up Longman, wing back for the 2-1 goal, and Windass kind of capped a starring performance with a really nice curler into the far corner. On opening day, I watched Wrexham Southampton, and my main takeaway was how good Windass and Kiefer Moore looked like as a front 2, with Windass playing off more. He went very close from range in the first half in that game, and this was basically a carbon copy, except he found the top corner. And he's basically only played 2 games in that he was excellent against Southampton. I then watched him play against West Brom. That was also on Sky, and Windass pulled his hamstring early in that game, and he missed the subsequent matches. Came back here and looked excellent again. So that looks like an amazing, of all of Wrexham's most eye-catching signings and transfer fees paid, probably the best business in the short term, arguably, was getting Windass on a free. Okonkwo spilled a Gibbs shot to Makama for his first goal in Norwich colours, but they lost 3-2. So their defensive record is so bad, and just visibly it looks like they're quite passive, kind of lacking energy. I know we've talked a lot about Manning teams before, when he managed Oxford, when he managed Bristol City, and how they get categorised sometimes as quite a high pressing team, but actually they can be very passive by design, almost in order to then spring and make the most of turnovers when they do get them. But at the moment, it's just not looking great in attack or defensively. And you look at the team, there's 6 new players in there. Kovacevic in goal, Darling, Medic, Topic, Diallo, Matson. And then there's 3 players that were signed last season, but none of whom have really nailed down a consistent performance level. Cordoba, Sanats, Jurasek, and then Josh Sargent, who's a superstar, and Jack Stacey, who's kind of been in and out over the last few years. So it's a bit of a weird team at the moment, Norwich, taking its time to form. And yeah, you kind of feel like Manning needs a couple of statement wins over the next couple of games. Otherwise, the international break is going to be pretty awkward for him. Whereas Wrexham get a massive win here, and I can't help but notice that Dom Hyam came in for Connor Cody. Hyam's an excellent defender at this level, proven, loves defending his penalty box, and probably is an upgrade on that front from Cody, and the team looked a lot better with Kabore and Windass very much the stars there. So big win for Wrexham there, very impressive performance. And how about Sheffield Wednesday going to Pompey and winning by 2-0?
Yeah, how about it? Amazing off the back of a midweek defeat to a League Two side in the Cup, where the League Two side went off massive favourites. To go away from home to Pompey, whose home form at Fratton Park under John Mousinho has been so strong, and to win the game in the means they were always going to win the game. You know, you look at the game itself and the chances that the Pompey did miss, and the way the goals came about. You know, you can obviously pick holes in the sustainability of this, but in the position that Wednesday are in, you know, it's points on the board basically, and every point they get on the board and every win they get, especially away from home, is so impressive. The first goal came from the consistent and absolutely sustainable quality of Barry Bannon, firing a free kick. Basically just mugging off Killip, the Pompey keeper, as much as he possibly can with a free kick. Killip guesses the wrong way from the free kick, takes a big step to his right, and Bannon just fires it the keeper's side, and Killip is rooted to the spot as the ball flies into the far corner. As I said, Pompey certainly had a couple of opportunities. Segovic was with one, and then just a really unfortunate goal for Pompey to concede with Conor Shaughnessy running onto the ball down Wednesday's right hand side and pulls up with a hamstring injury, which is a massive blow to them long term anyway, because you know you have to assume he's going to be out for a couple of months or so. But George Brown, the 20 or 19-year-old Sheffield Wednesday striker, runs onto the ball, and as much as you know Pompey fans won't like it, does what he absolutely should do, and finishes the chance off to make it 2-0. And this is what, you know, from Wednesday's. From my perspective, looking at Wednesday, like, we know their squad is incredibly thin. We know the massive off-field issues that they have, which again are showing little to no signs of improving. But you look at the team, like it's striking that Pedersen, the manager, has selected Kadamatari and Brown up front here, given that Jamal Lowe and Ike Obo were on the bench and came off the bench. You've also got, in the heart of defence, Ernie Weaver, a 19-year-old playing a centre-back too, and almost probably most excitingly, Harry Amas, the loanee from Manchester United, who played on the left-hand side and was really impressive. He looks like a proper player, someone who has that, you know, often with these academy graduates from top clubs, you know the technical ability is going to be there, and his left foot and these kind of wedged balls that he could play over the top that, for Kadamatari in the first half, and then you know, the strikers that came on to run onto were so effective. But it's his all-action performances out of possession that are really impressive. Someone who's really, his timing of the tackles is impeccable, really willing to get stuck in, like for an 18-year-old kid in this kind of atmosphere and with what's at stake here, to be putting himself about as he is so early on in his loan is mightily impressive, and I think he's going to be a big player for them this season. You know, for Wednesday, it's you know, a win here doesn't massively alter their fortunes, you don't think, especially with off-field issues probably going to be the guiding force as to how their season goes. But at a time where it felt like their performances understandably were starting to spiral, as presumably their young, small squad you know, got fatigued, a performance and a result like this, even if they, you know, had to rely on a couple of saves from Horvath and a couple of bit of wasteful finishing for the opposition, again shows everyone that they can't just be assumed to be a team you're going to turn up and beat easily. Yeah,
Pedersen with a bit of funky tactics, moving Jan Valery into a central midfield role. They're having to ask guys like Valery and Liam Palmer to play in all sorts of different positions and be really, really versatile. And obviously Valery did well in this game. Great to see two youngsters, Ernie Weaver, George Brown, both with names like World War II fighter pilots, and doing a good job here when Wednesday needed them. Sheffield United lost 1-0 at home to Charlton. Chris Wilder's first game back in the dugout. Sheffield United have now lost their opening 6 championship games. The last time we saw that at this level was Wycombe and Peterborough, 12-13. They both went down that season. So a lot of work to do, but this was deserved from a Charlton point of view. A good away performance. I guess they knew that the atmosphere was going to be pretty dialed up to start the game. The return of Wilder, I think they managed it really, really well. And when the chance came, Bree across to Alafe, I don't think you could really begrudge them the winning goal. They generated, albeit in a pretty low margin game, they had more expected goals from open play, more shots on target, 9 shots inside the box to Sheffield United's 5. They're really good defensively, Charlton. And looking this season, they've only conceded 1 XG or more twice. One was against Millwall in the last game, and that was with 10 men. They conceded, kind of gave in to the pressure eventually, but with 10 men. The other one was against QPR, where it was a injury time Kone goal that made it 3-1 to QPR, which probably tipped them over that. They are keeping the margins very low. They are not a team that are creating tons of chances consistently, but they've got Leeburn, Nibs and Alafe coming off the bench. The recruitment looks really smart in that the physicality that they have and the tempo with which they play, the intensity as well. They can keep it going. And that means they can play the way that they play for 90 minutes. And I think that's really, really effective for them. And good to see James Bree with a goal contribution. I feel like we've not spoken about
Lovely
him
first touch
very much over the last few years since that move to Southampton put him in the wilderness. What did Wilder do here? Well, Harmer obviously came straight back in. That was a point that he made, which understandably got the fans back on side pretty quickly. Out of all the centre-backs he's got to choose from, he went with Tanganga and McGuinness, which makes sense. Godfrey played right back. I wonder how much longer Godfrey will be in the team. Ogbene played right wing. Matos and Peck in the centre of the park. I mean, they are, it's so easy to say this, but when you look back at the team that made it to the playoff final, Ahmed Hodzic missing, Souza looks like a big hole in midfield, Kiefer Moore up top. Whether or not they thought Kiefer Moore was going to be their long-term option at the top of the pitch, at the very least, in terms of being a focal point and having size and that ability to hold the ball up, they didn't replace him with anyone. Campbell and Cannon are different types of strikers, and certainly Danny Ings is as well. So lots and lots of work for Wilder to do, and his old side Oxford United on the docket next weekend. Can we talk about... let me talk about a 1-0 win that definitely happened, and then we'll talk about a 1-0 win that was abandoned.
Right.
Preston beat Derby by a goal to 0. What a start to the season for Preston, and one of the most satisfying weaker foot goals you're likely to see from Alfie Devine, who just took a touch, and he might have even thought to himself, I'm not as good on my left foot as my right foot, but it's sitting up nicely for me. I'm just going to smash it as hard as I can.
Hit it.
Thwack. Top corner. Thanks very much. Devine... Obviously only 21, has had a couple of loans, good at Vale in League One, found it tough in a poor Argyle side under Ian Foster, looking great for Preston, only just turned 21 as well. And, this is a guy on loan from Spurs, but who came through at Wigan's Academy like so many talented young players and was sold off when they went into admin. He scored 2 great goals already for Preston. And their only defeat has come, 1-0 at Pompey. There wasn't that much in that game either. I think that Heckingbottom is and has always been a very underrated manager at this level. He's never had particularly good PR, Hecky, but he's got a promotion to the Premier League on his CV. He's doing a good job for Preston. They're in 5th after 6 games, and it's not fluky. It's not by chance. They've been really, really competitive. But at the same time, I think I am pretty concerned about Derby. Like, I was a big buyer of Derby stock pre-season, and broadly it came down to John Eustace, the existence of John Eustace, and defensive numbers last season. But Eustace has not been able so far this season to implement his really strong defence-first style of play. Derby have the 5th or 6th worst XG against. They look absolutely horrendous with the ball in attack. Their style isn't really working. And it's, realistically, they weren't very good going forward last season either. They scored almost all their goals from set piece situations, but because they kept a clean sheet or only conceded one in every game, that was taking them a bit further than it is now. So there's lots to sort out. I was kind of, understanding of their injury issues to start the season and willing to wait till, he's got a fit squad and a fit starting 11. I guess the positive here was Adjuman came in and created one really good chance for himself, which he didn't take, but looked very, very lively. Maybe he will help loosen them up at the top of the pitch. But at the moment, I'm in a league where, as you said at the top of the show, no one looks really bad so far. Derby look pretty bad to my eyes, and I'm pretty concerned about that. Go on, let's do the abandoned game, because that doesn't happen very often. Blackburn A, Ipswich A happened at Ewood Park. Talk me through it.
Ipswich off the back of a 5-0 win over Sheffield United that I think everyone thought would kickstart their season, were very, very poor, and Blackburn were fully deserving of their lead that came in part thanks to a red card given to Jacob Greaves, as he quite clearly kind of manhandled Ashi to the floor after a ball over the top, and then thanks to a penalty that was converted by Todd Cantwell, and Ipswich really struggled. Again, it was a performance of very, very little cohesion, few chances created, very little control. And again, kind of the warning signs of playing against Sheffield United, scoring 3 worldies and 2 shots to go between a keeper's legs. And maybe it was a case where it was just one of those days that everything went in. And again, seeing very little in terms of the processes for Ipswich Town, that they are going to be anywhere near the team they were a couple of seasons ago. But Blackburn, again, really, really strong. That attacking, the attacking unit they've got is just really fun to watch. Like really quick, fast transition attacks with a good understanding between them, and they cause Ipswich real trouble throughout the game. We are recording this lunchtime on Monday. There is no news currently. Hopefully soon to be lunch because I'm hungry. There has been no news as of yet as to what's going to happen here, because the game is postponed, or abandoned, I should say, with 10 minutes to go due to a waterlogged pitch. That was clearly the right call.
It was incredibly waterlogged.
It was very, very waterlogged.
Yeah. And I think the water
had been logged.
There's been a lot of debate, particularly on NTT20 Squad, about what's fair here. There was only 10 minutes of normal time to go. Is that enough of a game to say, oh, go on, let's just take the result? They had 10 men. Then there's like Ipswich fans being like, well, yeah, there was 10 minutes to go, but the ref's battery pack had got so wet they had to go off once or twice to change it. There'd been the red card. The game was barely a football match for the whole of the second half. So do you replay the game in full? Do you replay the last 15 minutes in the same conditions with Ipswich with 10 men?
So there seems to be this assumption, and this might age terribly, but there seems to be an assumption that the game is going to be replayed from the start at 0-0, which seems incredibly unfair to me, to Blackburn players and Blackburn fans, that the work that was put in to get ahead goes out of the window. Having said that, I also don't think you can give them the 3 points. Like, that also just seems ridiculous. Like, I know they're on top against 10 men, but you can't not finish a game.
Someone did point out that Blackburn were 1-0 up against Birmingham heading into injury time and lost 2-1 just a couple of weeks ago. So if any team knows that things can really change, and
surely there was enough like timekeeping going on by the referee to know what was due to be added at the point that or by the fourth official at the time of the postponement. Is it that hard just to be like, we're going to start from 80 with the same players out on the pitch? It's not perfect, and we're going to continue the stoppage time, and we'll put up a board. You don't have to come. Maybe they can make it whatever. Like, if you're looking for like what is fairest, surely that's just so obviously the fairest way of doing things. But it doesn't seem like that's really being spoken about as an option. Yeah. I also don't really get, it seems like, again, this is conjecture, it seems like Cantwell doesn't get to keep his goal if the game is abandoned and has to be replayed. But Jacob Greaves' suspension will continue to Saturday's game, which again just seems, I don't understand how you can basically say this game didn't happen apart from the red card, because that was bad actually, so you need to sit on the naughty step for a Saturday. Like, I don't get that at all. Maybe when by the time this goes out, we'll understand what's going on. But my assumption is that both parties will probably feel aggrieved when something is announced.
Greaves felt aggrieved.
Yeah, that was the point. I'm annoyed you didn't get it.
I just did.
Yeah, but
I literally did get
but
it.
I thought you were making the joke.
No.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Thank you. Someone's tetchy.
QPR, I'm hungry.
Lunchtime.
Hi, Tetchy, I'm hungry. George, you tell me about QPR 1, Stoke 0, and then I'll do the same for Birmingham 1, Swansea 0. What a weekend in the champ that these are the two, basically the games we're finishing with.
Yeah. QPR's really good form continues. Incredible what they've done off the back of a 7-1 defeat, really. But the Richard Kone, Roman Burrell, and this time Harvey Vale trio from an attacking perspective is working really, really well. They were pretty good for the most part in this, especially in the second half. Vale missed a couple of opportunities that fell to him. Burrell missed a good chance. The goal came from a set piece that kind of fell to Vale's path, and he kind of stroked it into the top left-hand corner. This was not the best performance from Stoke, who've been so impressive this season. I think it's inevitable this was going to come. It's going to be very hard for them to maintain this form. And I've actually managed to forget the player that was probably the best player on the pitch on the day, who was Saito, who was looking really, really good.
Great.
Yeah. His ball carrying, really strong, creative, goal threat. He was really, really good on the day. So it's funny, I messaged your friend of mine, James Alcott, who's a QPR fan, about a month ago, and just said, I wonder how many points we'll have between us when we face each other on October the 1st. And I think I said maybe like 3. And he was like, yeah, it's not good, is it? And now QPR are basically the form team in the league, and we've got 5 points in the last 3 games. So just shows things can change in football.
Yeah. Well, I played golf with James Alcott on Friday.
Right, mate, it's
and
not
we
competition.
talked a lot about Queen's Park Rangers. And we talked a lot about Harvey Vale. Obviously, I brought him up on the pod last week and said I was excited to see him looking like he's got a real spot in this team. James mentioned that Vale's quality hasn't necessarily shown in terms of like grabbing the bull by the horns with goal contributions and things like that, but he was absolutely everywhere in this game and could have scored more than his beautiful finish. But Nicholas Madsen as well, I saw James tweeting about him, has had a real renaissance after a first season where I think QPR fans had him as a bit of a joke figure in midfield, like one of those big burly centre mids that's not actually doing much with his physicality and wasn't necessarily as advertised in his first season. But how often do we see these guys in year 2 when they've adapted to the level, show what they can do? There's loads of players across the league that I can think of, a couple at Swansea as well, who are doing much better in year 2. And I think that's not much of a surprise when you sign players from overseas, playing in leagues that are incredibly different in loads of ways. You can't expect them to just slot in straight away, and the patience being shown not to just ship these guys off after one poor season, but to invest in them looks to be paying off with Madsen as well. Birmingham 1, Swansea 0. Really entertaining game, even if there was only one goal in it. I think this was a game where Vipotnik went close again, had a goal disallowed, which close at best.
Good noises.
Inusa had a great chance, well saved. For Birmingham, Duksh and Kyogo both had big chances as well before Big Linden said, you just curl in a tantalising cross, Roberts, and I'll stick my nut on it and head it into the corner. That's what he does very, very well. Big late winner for Birmingham, not their first of the season, but after a couple of disappointing performances and results in the last couple of games, this was a return to winning ways. And you just wonder, like, had Swans' midweek exploits against Forest, did that contribute to them tiring out a little bit and allow that chance? It's very, very hard to say, but what a performance that was, or what a comeback that was midweek for Swans against Forest. There's so much to like about this team under Sheehan this season. Kind of feels to me basically like they've improved in all the areas that they needed to improve, particularly at the top of the pitch, in wide forward areas. Their midfield has obviously been revamped after Grimes' departure and looks great, and defensively really strong numbers too. Birmingham's defence is doing well, giving very little away this season. That they're not that sexy in attack, are they? Doesn't help that poor Kyogo is basically missing every big chance that he gets, and didn't start here with Duksh and Stansfield given the nod. Neither of them able to score as well. So, all right start for Birmingham. Not amazing, not terrible, but I think nothing to worry about for sure. And finally, Leicester 0, Coventry 0 was a match that happened, quite an entertaining one, but 0-0, match that happened treatment. And on Monday night, after we record, Millwall and Watford will go head-to-head at the Den. Great weekend in the Championship. Thanks for listening to it.